Hello, I'm Rosie Poulin, and I'm here with my colleague Hannah Appiah-Madson, and we're going to talk to you about a fine kettle of fish and invertebrates, insight from Ocean Genome Legacy's migration to Arctos. So this talk is about data migration, and if you think about your collections data, it might be in spreadsheets, or it might be in an internal database such as FileMaker or Microsoft Access, or it might be in a publicly available collection management system, or CMS, such as EMU, Specify, Arctos, Symbiota, or the GGBN data portal. OGL's data was in an internal FileMaker database until 2023, when we migrated to Arctos.
The Ocean Genome Legacy Center, or OGL, is a genomic resource repository for marine life. We were founded in 2004, and we strive to collect DNAs and tissues from all marine organisms. You can scan the QR code here to learn more about our mission and our policies. On the right, you can see a picture of our team from 2024. We're located just north of Boston at Northeastern University's Marine Science Center in Nahant, Massachusetts. Here you can see our institute on the left, and that we are pretty well embedded in the Atlantic Ocean. We focus on marine life because we understand so little about marine biodiversity, but at the same time, climate change, ocean acidification, oil spills, plastic inputs, and overfishing are really doing a number on our marine ecosystems. And all of this combined really means that marine populations are in decline. This chart is only showing through 2012, and we're seeing nearly a 50% decline in marine populations. So there's a lot of urgency about understanding and documenting marine ecosystems. We focus on genomes because they're physically small. They're small but mighty, so they're also informatically huge. And we can treat a DNA sample from a bacteria the same way we would treat a DNA sample from a shark. And we can fit many, many of these samples into our freezers, so the physical footprint of all of this material is substantially smaller than other kinds of collections. The Ocean Genome Legacy Collection contains materials from more than 34,000 organisms coming from more than 5,000 different locations. This map shows our global distribution of localities, and from depths ranging from 0 to almost 6,000 meters below sea level. You can scan the QR code here to learn more about our collection objects. Those 34,000 organisms represent more than 5,000 taxa, but our strongest holdings are in teleost fish and marine invertebrates.
So why are we giving this talk? Well, migrating data is a big, terrifying, and consequential task that will have long-term effects on your data and your collection. And we're here to talk about 10 recommendations that we have for your data migration projects.
Our first piece of advice is to use the buddy system. Having a buddy means that when one of you is overwhelmed, very hopefully the other one is not. And on average, 2 brains are better than 1. Here is a picture of Rosie and I at the beginning of this adventure. We are still fresh-faced and excited about migrating our data set.
The next thing you should do is evaluate your collection's needs. So we asked what our collection needed in a database. And since we're a genomic resource, we needed to be able to track DNA and sequencing data. We also want to make sure that we can track where our parts physically are in space, so we wanted object tracking to be part of the database. We used the World Register of Marine Species for taxonomy, and we didn't want to have to individually manage our taxonomy. We wanted to be able to use that database that already exists. We wanted our data to be able to be accessed by other collections, so we wanted data sharing capabilities, and we also wanted some technical support because no one on our team is a computer scientist. We listed out very specifically all of our collections needs, and we started with the prompt OGL needs to make sure that these were functional needs that we were listing. Once we did that, we prioritized those needs to the most important things. So for example, it was very important for us to be able to batch upload data and batch modify data, as well as to have nuanced DNA extract fields within our data.
The next step is for you to evaluate your collection management system options. So for us, we thought a lot about, does the collection management system implement data standards during data entry? We all know that there are many ways to write dates, and so dates were one of the things that we were concerned about whether or not those were standardized. We also wanted a collection management system to implement drop-down menus as often as possible for controlled vocabularies to reduce the amount of spelling and data entry errors that might occur during data entry. We also wanted to know how interoperable the collection management system was and whether it provided data directly to aggregators. And we were concerned and thinking about OBIS and WORMS and GGBN and GBIF and Darwin Core. We also wanted to know whether or not the collection management system provided data migration assistance. Because we're a small organization, we wanted to have as much hands-on help from the collection management system to help facilitate our migration. And I would really like to emphasize the importance of talking to both data migration folks who are associated with that organization and also other users, other collection users, to get a really rounded perspective of what that collection management system might be able to do for your data.
Next, we used logic to select our new CMS. For each CMS that we considered, we evaluated how well they handled each one of our database's very specific needs. So we returned to our giant Excel spreadsheet where we listed and prioritized the needs of our collection. Then we examined how our current FileMaker database was performing to meet those needs. We then asked how the different platforms we were considering would meet those same needs, and then we ranked them against each other. And we think it's really important to include the current database that we were using in this ranking to ensure that we were actually moving to an improved system and not making things more complicated for no reason. For us, it came down to how the systems handle taxonomy and object tracking, and in the end, we chose to go to Arctos.
As soon as we had decided to move forward migrating to the Arctos collection management system, we joined the Arctos working group and engaged with the greater Arctos community online. And a lot of that was because, we were really excited about this decision, but also because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Again, I've mentioned we're a really small staff, so we wanted to talk to as many different people who use this collection management system to learn as much as we could about their best practices and how to implement those best practices in our collection.
Once we joined the community, we found a mentor within that community. Having a mentor to help us guide through the migration process was critical. Our mentor was Teresa Mayfield-Meyer, who is the greenest person on the planet. Not only did she understand the architecture of Arctos, she also understood how we wanted to use and interact with our data.
Now that you're ready to migrate, it's important to have a strategy. The first step is to use some sort of project management tool. Arctos uses GitHub, so that's what we used in this circumstance, but any project management tool would work. Then we began by parsing our data from the FileMaker database into different data types, and then mapping those data types to the correct data tables in Arctos. But it was important to know that it might not be a one-to-one relationship or a direct mapping. There is work that you have to do to massage the data from your old system, from your previous system, to the new one. So, for example, in FileMaker, we had event information on one table and locality information on a second table, and both of those directly linked to our catalog records. But in Arctos, catalog records have parent events, which have parent localities, which have parent higher geography. And because it's a nested relationship, we couldn't just directly port our locality and event information in a one-to-one relationship to Arctos. We had to do some data massaging. And then the last step is to systematically migrate one data type at a time to your new collection management system.
Once you have a strategy in place, you should implement data standards. A big part of migrating to Arctos was mapping free text data fields into fields that used controlled vocabulary. Using controlled vocabulary has a lot of pros. It makes data more consistent and reduces spelling errors. Since all terms are defined and in Arctos they're linked to the definitions, it makes data more accessible both to people who are inputting data and people who are then trying to get data out of your system. It increases your data's fairness, so its findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. And it also simplifies serving data to aggregators. There are a couple of cons that are also associated with controlled vocabulary, however. Community agreement on definitions can be a process, and that can sometimes be a very long process. If a value isn't present, data entry can be slowed down, and migrating data into fields with controlled vocabulary is very time intensive and is a very big upfront curatorial cost.
The ninth thing you should do is collaborate with students. We're at Northeastern University, which has an extremely robust co-op program, which means that we work with undergraduate students for 6 months, and they're with us full-time during that period. And they're really amazing and a wonderful resource, and we get to do really excellent projects with them during this time. And while we found that they didn't necessarily have the context to be involved with the initial data migration, they've played a really critical role in implementing new parts of the Arctos collection management system for our data. And some examples of this are that students have worked on putting publications into Arctos and then linking those publications directly to the materials that were used in that paper. And they're linked with live hyperlinks so that anyone who's coming to our collection can access the information about those records. They've also been entering GenBank links, which again are live hyperlinks that the public can access to link that sequence data directly to that record. And they've also been putting media in the Arctos collection management system and then linking that media directly with our records for the public to see.
Our last recommendation is to document everything. There's a tension between not knowing what you're doing and needing to document things anyway, and it was really important for us to document things as we were figuring them out so that we can go back and understand why we made certain decisions. This is an excellent opportunity for students to collaborate as well. We had students documenting and creating protocols as they were learning new systems and as we were all learning them together. And we see our SOPs as living documents. So we utilize Google Docs for most of our SOPs. That way, new students could have comment access, and then as they got more understanding of the system, they could edit those documents and we could make them as active as possible and as accurate. And all of the processes in your system are going to change, and it's scary, but it's really important to try to embrace that change.
So in summary, if you are about to embark on a data migration project, you should use the buddy system. Evaluate your collection's specific needs. Evaluate the collection management system options that you have. Use logic to select a new collection management system. Join the community of that system. Find a mentor. Create a strategy. Implement data standards. Collaborate with students. And most importantly, document everything. And with that, we would like to thank Teresa Mayfield-Meyer, the Arctos Working and Issues groups, particularly Dusty, Michelle, and Erica, a whole slew of OGL staff and students who have been involved in this migration process, as well as the Golett Charitable Lead Trust and these NSF awards, which partially funded our migration to Arctos. And with that, we would be happy to take any questions. You can find us at any of these various platforms. Thanks!